Hi, babe. What's going on here?
All right, so what we have is, you can see down on the ground here, we had laid just a couple of 2x4s down. This is one of the fence line beds that we use to plant, and we laid a few 2x4s down just to kind of help separate between the grass and the growing areas, so we didn't have to constantly fight the grass going into our bed. So what we're going to do now is, the weather's nice and cool. It's like October 10th, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and give this an upgrade, and the way that I'm going to do that is come in and rototill, and then instead of using 2x4s, we have some 2x6s that we're going to use to make a much better, straight and nice looking planter bed for this area, that will both separate the grass from the bed and look a lot nicer and be much more effective. First step is I'm going to rototill this area just to break the soil up, to make leveling the edge of the planter box much easier for me. And especially with it having rained a few days, the soil should be nice and soft, very easy to rototill, very easy to maneuver, move around, and get a nice level planter box side.
គាត់យកម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងគាត់យកទៅrototill ខ្មែរយើងខ្ញុំមិនដឹងថាពាក្យអីទេគាត់នឹងកិនធ្វើឲ្យដីនឹងប្របែកដីឲ្យជ្រោយដីគាត់ជ្រោយដី I don't know if that's the word.
So anyway, like I said, headphones on, ear protection, and then we'll get it going.
គាត់បានខៃដីជីកដីប្រផុសដីរួចហើយបងប្អូន
Alright guys, so now that it's been rototilled up, that's going to be allow me to now get the edge of the planter box put together and level it out a lot easier than had I left it, solid compacted dirt. And so the next step is to start putting the wall itself in. So we want the edge of the box to be somewhat level with the corner of this deck here. So what I'm going to do is measure from the fence to the corner of this deck, and that's about 30 inches. So I know that that's how wide I want the deck to come off the fence. And since we want it to be kind of consistent throughout, I'm going to cut two pieces that are going to be at 30 inches, and that's going to have one that's going to be here and one on the other corner. Okay, so what we're using for our planter box here is just untreated pine. And I purposely choose untreated pine. I mean, I know this is going to weather and it's going to degrade down, but it also means that it hasn't been treated with chemicals. And since this is one of the beds where we plan to put vegetables that we're going to ultimately end up eating, we don't want the chemicals from a treated lumber to leach into the ground and then have the vegetables absorb all those chemicals and become bad for us. That kind of defeats the purpose. So these are just 2x6 untreated pine, and we're gonna measure out 30 inches and cut it at that length. Okay guys, so we'll put it up on the saw. We're gonna align it to where it's 30 inches. And again, since this is gonna be outside, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. The fence itself isn't perfect, so it's gonna be, as close to 30 inches as I can. That's pretty good there. And then we'll just go ahead and cut this through. Alright guys, so the next thing I'm going to do is, this isn't really a necessary step, but I'm going to do it just because I can. It's not going to take too much longer to do. So obviously you can have this be the corner of your bed with no problem. There's nothing wrong with it. It'll work just fine. But I'm going to actually cut a 45-degree angle in both of the pieces of wood here, so that way I can have that join up and be more of a decorative corner. And like I said, it's not required. I'm just going to do it simply because I have the saw and the tools that I can. And like I said, functionality-wise, it does nothing, but it's just aesthetic. Okay, guys, so these boards are, I believe, 10 feet long. So I know my overall length is like 28 feet or something like that. So I know I'm going to have two boards that are going to be the full length, not cut at all, but one corner to be cut at that 45. And that's what I did on both of these. So as you can see now, that's going to line up, and that's going to form my corner of the box. And so I have two pieces that are long, two pieces that are at 30 inches cut, and then I have them both cut at the 45-degree angle, and that's going to be the corner of the box. Okay, now one of the things that we're going to do as well, it's going to be aesthetic, but it's also going to be a little bit functional, is I have a small piece of 4x4, and what I've done is I've cut the 4x4 to where it's basically the same height as my 2x6. So basically, it's, you know, the actual measurement is about 5.5 inches, and I just eyeballed it. I put it up against it, drew a line, and I cut it. Because again, if it's off just a little bit, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So what I'll do is I'm going to put this just where that line is, and I'll sink a couple screws through this board into this 4x4, and then same thing with the other one into this 4x4, and that's going to help hold that joint together and be that much stronger, okay? All right, guys, so once we get this corner piece put in, then how we're going to put this into the ground is we just went down and got some basic wooden stakes, and we'll drill a couple holes in here. I've actually already got this one drilled out, but as you can see, we'll line this up and then just put a couple screws in here that's going to anchor this stake to the side of the board, the planter bed wall, I guess. And so when we go to put this in place, then we'll just be able to hammer these stakes down, and then that's how we're going to make this stay level as we're putting it in, and this will keep it from wiggling back and forth, as well as you know, anchor it down in place. Okay, guys, so this is now a finished product, or a piece of it anyway. So we have the smaller board. As you can see, we have our stakes that have been sunk in. So this is now basically upside down, but I'll go and put it in place and then start hammering it down to get it to where it needs to be.
It's getting dark, guys.
Yeah.
It gets dark very fast. It's getting dark, you guys. Seems like it's gonna rain too.
So basically all we're gonna do is just set this down to where this is up against there, and then we'll get a hammer and we'll just start hammering it down. And yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll do is I'll probably measure over there just so I can have another piece to make sure it's not angled in or whatever, which, I mean, I can see that it is already a little bit, but like I said, that'll be the basic idea. And then as you can see with this little piece, I put it halfway in because we'll have I'll build another piece similar to this that's going to go on the other end, and then I have to put one more piece that's going to go in between the two. And I'll just have to get these two pieces in, then measure it to length, and then so that way it'll butt up against here, and then I'll be able to put another couple screws in to support and that joint and keep it nice and strong. So, all right, guys, well, we're going to go ahead and end this clip here simply because it's getting dark and we don't want to have it be too dark for you guys to be able to see. So I'll continue doing the construction of putting these things together. But then when we go to sink it down into the ground, we'll wait until tomorrow when we actually have some daylight and you guys can see putting it in place and then the final product. So as always, see you in a little bit. So brought the end pieces out and then took a measurement and placed them roughly where we wanted them to go, and then measured between the two pieces to cut the middle two pieces, and then basically did the exact same thing with them to where we made it to where they'll be able to attach to the little piece of 4x4 and then attach the stakes to them. So now all we got to do is just hammer it down into the ground and you know, level it out, but it should be real easy to keep it fairly consistently level throughout. And then once it's level, we'll attach the inner two pieces together and then to the two end pieces, forming it into one long continuous border or a wall. Okay, so the way that I'm going to put these together is I'm actually going to attach this board to this 4x4 chunk here before I pound it in the ground. And the reason why is because if I want this joint here to be nice and tight, and if I were to have this in the ground, being able to line this up perfectly to where as I hammer it down, it gets nice and snug would be extremely difficult. Whereas if I get the joint tight first and then hammer it down all as kind of like one unit, it'll be much easier to get a nice, tight, snug joint. So that's what I'm going to do there. And then those two screws should be enough, just because we rototilled the soil to be able to get, as we hammer them down, it shouldn't cause any problems with this joint separating. So I'm gonna line that up, like I said, get that nice and snug, and then just to help make sure that it doesn't move, I'm just gonna use a clamp. And then make sure I don't cover up my my guide holes or my pilot holes. Clamp that down nice and snug. And I didn't buy screws that were long enough actually to go through these 2x6s into the studs. So I'm just using some leftover deck screws that I had, and I figured they're gonna sink down into the wood nice, and they're designed to be exposed to the elements, so they should work just fine. Okay, and then I'm just going to repeat the exact same process for the other two joints to basically form the entire bed into one continuous piece. It is more or less where it's supposed to be lined up, and then the last thing I'll do is get one more piece that's about 30 inches long, or maybe 28.5, that I can slide in here and just make sure that the distance from the fence is consistent as we start sinking it down into the ground. With that one. Okay, so they're all together now. So the last step is just going to be getting one more piece, like I said, because from on the very edge over here, from the tip of this board here to the tip here is 30 inches. And so we want to make sure that this is as close to that same measurement, and even like just standing here, you can kind of see where it bows in and out as it goes down. So we'll get one more piece and measure 30 inches minus the width of this board, and as we start to sink the spikes down, we'll just make sure that we measure that up, and that's going to help us maintain a straighter edge as we sink it down into its more permanent place. Now what we're doing is, you'll notice over here, the height of this bottom board here is about even with the grass level, and that's where we want it to be. I might go just a hair lower, but I don't really need it to go that much lower, because just the natural way of the earth, it'll fill in this little gap as we backfill soil in here, and then as I'm edging, it'll hit that area and it'll fill that in with no problem. So now that we have one that's more or less at the target height, the next step that we're going to do is get out the level, and we're just going to try to keep it fairly level across. Now I do have to take into consideration that my yard is not perfectly level, so I need to make sure that it's if I start seeing some type of extremities, I would rather this be level and consistent with the ground than with actual true level. So, but that's the general idea.
គាត់ធ្វើខាំងកន្លែងដំណាំហើយនឹងស្មៅចិត្តហើយធ្វើឲ្យស្អាតមើលព្រោះឯនៅស្រុកអាមេរិកនេះគេនិយមដាំដំណាំភាគច្រើនពួកអង់គ្លេសពួក American គេពួកខាំងគេដាំអីគេធ្វើអញ្ចឹងយ៉ាងអញ្ចឹងខាំងគេហៅ Planterbed ខ្មែរយើងធម្មតាដាំភាគច្រើនគ្រាន់តែដីធម្មតាហើយធ្វើឲ្យស្អាតឲ្យស្មើក៏ប៉ុន្តែពួកគេគេចូលចិត្តភាសាអង់គ្លេសពួកគេចូលចិត្តធ្វើនេះធ្វើដាក់ឈើហើយដាក់ខាំងអញ្ចឹងណាថ្ងៃនេះគឺជាថ្ងៃបញ្ចប់ដែលថាគ្រួសារខ្ញុំបានធ្វើ Planterbed នេះឲ្យខ្ញុំដាក់នៅជារៀងផ្ទះនេះកន្លែងថាខ្ញុំដាំបន្លែ so it's all done ក៏ធ្វើហើយនៅដូចចឹងឯងបងប្អូនឥឡូវនេះគ្រាន់តែយើងថែមជីហើយទៅហើយដាក់គ្រាប់ដាំបានស្អាតបាត់ឃើញទេ all set took him 2 days ធ្វើ2ថ្ងៃបងប្អូនមកពីរវល់ធ្វើការផងអីផងមើលអញ្ចឹងគឺថែមអញ្ចឹង Right babe what do you think I think you did good Prince Ada looks very beautiful
Yeah, and if you've been following along, you saw how we had the stakes originally attached to the board, but we put it in and it was working kinda, but what ended up happening was we didn't get the stakes straight up and down as they were going in, and so it caused the stakes to lean out, which caused the boards to lean out, and it just was from the side of it, it didn't look that bad, but if you were standing off to one side and looking down long ways, you can see it tilting out really, really bad. And so what I ended up doing was going back through and taking all of the stakes off of the boards, and then just doing one section at a time, getting it lined up, leveled, and then hammering the stakes next to the board and then screwing them back into the side.
Yeah,បងប្អូន look at it's a lot straighter មើលស្មើនឹងត្រង់កាលពីម្សិលមិញវាបន្តិចឥឡូវនេះគាត់ធ្វើត្រង់ហើយ So hey all we have to do is add soil and fertilizer and this bed is ready
Yep.
It's easier for him to edge as well ដល់ពេលគាត់ចង់កាត់ស្មៅអីចឹងទៅគាត់កាត់តាមគាត់កាត់ស្មៅគាត់យកអីគាត់កាត់តាមនេះទៅវាស្រួលបងប្អូនឃើញស្អាតកុំឲ្យរាយពេក
This will make it to where when I'm edging, I don't accidentally hit plants that are growing in there and inadvertently cut the plant off at the base. And so now I can just edge right along the base of the board and go from there. That'll help make things easier for me and less frustrating when you're growing plants and, like I said, accidentally kill them.
Yep, that's it, bump on. That's all you want to do. Updating our planter bed. Looks very good. ស្អាតត្រង់ហើយស្មើថែមទឹកដីហើយដាក់ជីហើយ
A lot better than just a 2x4 laying on the ground.
Yeah, that was the original plan. I was waiting for him to have time to do it for me. But yep. Okay, bump on. This is it. This is our yard, and I'm happy that my husband was able to take some time to get this project done for us. Anyhow, you guys.
Now we get to call Gary for more goat poo.
Yeah. Okay, ឥឡូវនេះបានហើយបងប្អូនសូមអរគុណ and hopefully you will have a fabulous evening just like us. Look at sun is starting to set over there. What? Sun is starting to set. Beautiful sky. It's out. I want to do a shout out to my little brother and his girl. Thank you so much for this beautiful gift. អរគុណថាអំណោយថាបងអូនថ្លៃបងអូនខ្ញុំហើយនិងបងអូនថ្លៃខ្ញុំបានឲ្យខ្ញុំហើយបាទ all done. Beautiful, right? Okay, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.